welcome back to the Between the Lines podcast. I'm your host, Shania Trotter, and today we're going to be talking about Interview with a Vampire. So, if y'all know me, y'all know I love this show down, and I could talk about this show all day. Similar to Nana, I could talk about that show all dang day. So, for the sake of time in this episode, we're going to just go over some of the themes that I saw. Y'all know I go on tangents though, so just walk with me. So when it comes to vampire shows or movies, we always see the vampiric gift as something that's life changing and as if it just enhances, right? It makes your life better in all these different ways with your speed, your strength, being able to do things you never did before. And yes, we see some downfalls. Like think about Twilight or The Vampire Diaries or my parents didn't let me watch True Blood growing up, but I remember seeing a couple scenes when I was walking through, and I could see why they wasn't letting me watch it. But the point of the matter is, it's always like sexualized, romanticized vampires and the vampiric gift compared to with this. Like yes, we get that, like with the different color eyes and the strength and all that kind of stuff, the different powers that like Lestat has. But something that they also show that I can really appreciate is the toxicity like the toxicity, the abuse, okay, that can come with these type of relationships that come with like a master or a maker, a creator. Because when I think about it, almost every show that I've seen that included vampires, not every last one and not every last case, right, of somebody being turned into a vampire, but almost every time it was something traumatic, right? Like okay, this person was on the verge of dying. Like it almost always was something traumatic in some way, shape, or form. And either somebody was trying to forcibly change that person, or they were trying to save that person from dying from some type of traumatic death, or whatever the case is, or they feel like they were dying too soon, or whatever. It's rare that, like, for example, this is something from season 2, but for example, later on when we see Madeline get turned, right, for Claudia, and Louis turns her. That was an active decision on her part. She wasn't forced necessarily. She wasn't, um, bribed or anything like that. Like she wanted to do that. But we don't get to see that very often in these like vampire films and TV shows. And so a lot of times these people are like created and born again as vampires from like something traumatic. And when it comes to like having like this creator and the created type of relationship, it's usually if we really look at it, it's some type of toxic abusive type situation, but that's not always addressed, right? And so I like the fact that Interviewing with a Vampire, we addressed it, and we also addressed it from different standpoints. And so I want to talk about the Stockholm Syndrome, right? Because I think that's very important. Because the thing is, I love the fact that, for one, that it's queer coded and that they're getting some representation. Okay, I love that. But I also like the fact that, honestly, the them being vampires kind of, for me at least, when I first watched season 1, it kind of took the back seat. I was so like into the drama and I was so into the relationship and the family dynamics even when Claudia came around, that I was like, oh yeah, and they're vampires. Like, oh, so when they beating each other's ass, like, oh, they throwing each other through the walls and shit. Like, oh, wait a damn minute. Oh yeah, they when Lestat picked his ass up in the air and, like Claudia said, dropped him like an egg out of a plane, honey. I was like, oh hell yeah, I forgot. They're vampires. So their shit is gonna be OD. Like that's how in the story I was. It really pulled me in. They really emphasized the love story, but they also really emphasized, the abuse and how the abuse can affect people in different ways, how there's different perspectives, and also how there can be multiple things true at once. So going back to the Stockholm Syndrome, right? Which actually brings me to one of my favorite characters in the series. Honestly, I really do love all the characters in this series for different reasons, right? Not just because they played the hell out of their roles, okay? The actors and actresses, they played the hell out of their roles. Like, they just gave us good TV. But also because they all have their own motives and they all play their roles really well in this grand scheme of things, right? So, okay, brings me back to Daniel. All right, let's just talk about Daniel real quick. I love him so much because he opens Louis' eyes, and I think Louis understood that, even though, and understand, even though I'm saying that we're going to focus on season 1, I'm going to be pulling some stuff from season 2, because how can I not? But even though Louis knew something was off with his memory, I think he understood that Daniel was the one that he needed to talk to be able to get the truth out. I don't think he understood the extent of that truth, but he understood, like, okay, I need to go ahead and do part 2 with him. But going back to that first interview, I think it was so important that they even had that first interview, and how Louis came off. He was very angry. Back in that first interview, Louis, of course, everything still revolved around Lestat, because let's be real. Let's be so real. On one hand, that's a lot to try to heal from. Even though it had been years at that point, that's still a lot to try to heal from. On top of the fact, oh my God, there's just so many layers. On top of the fact that this was like Louis's like first relationship, first open like relationship with a man. We know he had that little crush on that military dude, that army dude back in the day, but they never really got to do nothing openly and be in a full-fledged relationship. So in a lot of ways, Lestat is Louis's first love and always will be, honey. It just is what it is. On top of being his creator, on top of just being together for so damn long and sharing this quote unquote gift. And I say quote unquote because some people can look at it as a gift, and some could look at the vampire powers as like a curse. For a long time, Louis did look at it as a curse. But it's very important to see how he is reacting to everything, how he is feeling, his perspectives is on everything at the time of this very first interview. He's pissed off. He's angry. He's very spiteful. He has a lot of animosity toward Lestat. Compared to this second time around, where he's including all of these different feelings, although I do kind of feel like sometimes, actually a lot of times, he is romanticizing a lot of the abuse. He's romanticizing a lot of the manipulation. But I think, and this is the thing, when Daniel asked, like, what's the change of heart? Because now it's a completely different tune that you singing. And, he's like, Louis like, oh, well, you just time and you mature and all this and all that. And I will say this. This is why it's so complex. It's very good. I will say this. Multiple things are true at once. They can be true at once, right? This person can have abused, Louis. But can Louis also have loved that person? Yes. Can they have had good times together? Yes. Could Louis feel like this is the first person that actually saw him? Yes. But was he also abusive and probably like narcissistic and all that, doing a lot of emotional manipulation? Of course. And I think in that first interview, Louis was just going off of all the negative feelings. He wasn't thinking about all that other stuff. Like, he wasn't thinking about how all the stuff that made him fall in love with him. He wasn't thinking about all the good times. He was just thinking about the anger that he felt, the resentment that he felt. Some people could argue that that is what he should have kept toward Lestat. Some people could argue that. Absolutely. Because some can also argue that some people could say by including all these other feelings that made you fall in love with him in the first place, think about all the good times, can allow you to get sucked back in, right? It can allow you to get sucked back in and then let that person back into your life, back into your heart, and then you could end up getting hurt again. Some people could, can argue that. Others can also argue what Louis was trying to say when it came down to, well, should we judge people off of their worst moments? So when it comes to that question that he had asked Daniel, for me personally, it depends on what the hell you did and how many times did you do it. Because if most of your damn moments are the quote unquote worst moments, okay, and you keep doing it continuously, then I don't know. You might not be getting forgiven. I'm sorry. But I get what, Louis means, because again, it's like, it reminds me of like kind of like cancel culture in a way. What we see on like, social media, where somebody can have a bad moment or a bad take or a bad thought or whatever the case is, just a bad moment in their career. And, people, well, I'm not going to go down the whole rabbit hole with this cancel culture, child, because a lot of people be trying to, just bully people and then call it, we're holding them accountable. And I'm like, it's a difference. Accountability is different than bullying, okay? Some people, I feel like with everything going on in the world right now, they feel helpless. So then any type of little power that they can have, even if it's just through a screen, they want to go ahead and, enforce it. A perfect example of this is the Love Island fandom of this year. Let me not even get into that, child. But anyway, so with that being said, I do understand what Louis trying to say, but at the same time, that way of thinking is what, some abusers count on the victims to have, so that they can weasel their way back into their lives. So like I said, when it comes to that question that Louis asked, I always say, well, what the hell did they do, and how many times did they do it? Because again, heavy on what the hell they do that though, because it could only you only need one time to do something crazy, okay? And honestly, quite frankly, we talk about Louis and Lestat after he dropped you out that motherfucking sky, honey. That really should have been it. That really should have been it. Because how the hell you say you love me and you drop me out the motherfucking sky? Absolutely fucking not. Now, what I will say is, Louis wasn't, Louis wasn't 100% innocent in the situation. I will say, because Louis does live for the drama. He do be instigating and he do be pressing buttons, honey. But at the end of the day, that was way too far. That was way too far. And the fact that he took him back was crazy. But at the same time, understandable when you talk about the Stockholm Syndrome, which I was supposed to be talking about in the first place. See, that's what I'm saying. You gotta just walk with me. It's all gonna make sense. But going back to what I was saying I love Daniel because he brings Louis off, like he keeps him on the ground. He keeps his head out the clouds. Okay, whenever he starts to kind of romanticize the abuse, he's like, wait, hold on. Wait a damn minute. So, master and his slave in the coffin together, right? Like he always sets it straight because he's not looking at Lestat through no rose colored glasses. He's removed from the relationship and from the situation to where he doesn't have to try to sugarcoat anything. And with this Stockholm syndrome, it's important to note that although Louis, was kind of like forced into vampirism, and I say forced because let's be real, let's be so real. Louis was forced to become a vampire. Okay, Louis, let's get that straight. And I understand that Louis is like, in that moment though, even though I was terrified, I did feel seen, I did feel heard for the first time. And that's another thing that I saw when it came to acceptance and even sexuality. And this is why I say again, multiple things can be true. Okay, just because Louis said that he felt seen and felt heard and accepted for the first time does not mean that he was not coerced into becoming a vampire. Because if you remember that scene in the church, okay, Louis was hearing Lestat's voice in his head. He was trying to grieve his brother. He was trying to go talk to Lily, find out Lily's dead. His brother's dead. He don't have nobody. He's just like, okay, I need to repent. I need to finally go to the church and go speak to the Father and, try to repent. Like he was like, I slept with the devil. Like he was going through it. He was having a mental freaking breakdown. And what did Lestat do? He killed those two people, right? The priest and whoever, that other person that was up in there. He tore up that damn church. It was fire burning. It literally looked like hell. And he looked like a white devil. Blood all on his face. And you're telling, join me, Louis. I can give you that death that you're asking your non-existent God for, or you can join me. Literally looking like a demon. Okay? And even though Louis says he was felt seen this, that, and the third, what other choice did he have? It's not like Louis Lestat was like, okay, look, I can give you this gift so that you can, do this, that, and the third, and you think about it. Take 2-3 days to think about it, and then call me. No, he just killed two people in front of you. He tore up this damn church. You don't have anybody left to talk to, right? And I'm not talking about like his family and things like that. Like, yes, he had a sister, but in this moment, he cannot get to her, for one. His mama don't fuck with him after this brother died. She thinks she blaming him for the brother's death. So he has no one. And it's like, okay, if I say no, you gonna do the same thing you just did to them to me? I'm not trying to get ripped apart like that. Absolutely not. Like, yeah, I said I want to die when I was screaming and crying and having a mental breakdown, but not like that. I'm trying to die a regular death. So yeah, Louis was coerced into becoming a vampire. And this is why Louis says that later on. When, Louis goes and he this is what I was saying, Lestat is a damn fool. He a hot ass mess. Because remember when Claudia was like, why can't I have one lover, and Lestat got two and outed his shit, and Louis was like, oh, oh, your ass is cheating on me? And he talking about, I just like a little variety. Don't piss me off. And so then Louis was like, oh, okay, so bad. So you don't mind if I go have some little variety, right? As long as it's, as long as I come home to you. He's talking about, of course, of course. He didn't think that Louis was going to go tit for tat, honey. Because who the fuck you feeling like thinking you about to go step out and be the only one stepping out? Absolutely not. And so then, of course, Lestat crazy ass going to go and spy on him the whole time. And then, he was just like, you watched the whole thing like some creeper. And he was just like, I watched you do this and drain a rat. This is not a life. And Louis like, well, yeah, because you took my life. This is what I'm saying, like, for anybody who thinks that he wasn't coerced into becoming a vampire, because even though he was feeling those things, like, oh my god, somebody's finally seeing me, for me in my entirety, yeah, he still forced you into that shit though. Like, he didn't give you a choice. It was either that or death. Hello? And who wants to die? Even though it is a choice, because later on in season 2, we do see Madeline, she chooses death rather than being with that coven. So it is a choice. Everything is a choice. So he did choose. But at the same time, it was like either that or death, rather than just leave me the fuck alone. Like, was that not an option? Like, let's not, could you just have left Louis the fuck alone? He would not leave him alone. After that, they had that one night together, child. But that's the thing. He was always hunting Louis. From the moment he saw him, he was like, oh yeah, I want that one. So that wasn't a choice. It was either you're going to be mine or you're going to die. And again, that is being forced. It is what it is. And so going back to that first interview, it makes perfect sense why he's, upset. He's angry. On top of that, we know that what happens to Claudia, he blames him for that as well. But in this second interview, he's tying in all the feelings that he felt because he's, reminiscing, he's remembering and all these things. And I feel like this is one of the reasons why I love this show so much, because you are able to see how complex these characters are. You're able to see how complex the relationship was. And I think it was a really good depiction of a lot of people's abusive relationships, because if we're gonna be so real, and this is why I say a lot, not all, but a lot of people's abusive relationships were not always abusive, and at first it started off as like, oh, okay, this is nice, this is cool, and then later on, right, that's when you really start to see, like, once you already in it, your feelings involved, or you're married or something to where you can't really just get out of it. Or sometimes you can get out of it. It's a choice. But now those feelings are involved, right? Now that's when that person starts showing their ass. And now they started showing those true colors. And now, because you're so wrapped in it, whether it's, through finances or through marriage or through children, let's be so real, through children, okay? Or if it's just romantic feelings, okay? Now it's hard to get away. Now it's like you're always connected to this person. And I just love how they depicted that, hey, yeah, these victims, sometimes they can have Stockholm Syndrome, to where now it's like their abuser is their hero. Their abuser is somebody that they want to even protect. Even in narrating the story of what happened to them, they kind of want to protect their image in some way, shape, or form. They don't want to just paint them as all bad. But at the same time, sometimes people who abuse others, they do have redeeming qualities, believe it or not, right? And this is sometimes what makes it easier for them to abuse people, because they bring them in with either the charisma, right? They're either really funny, or they're either handsome or really pretty, or whatever the case is, or they can be helpful or useful in some type of way, shape, or form. That's how they bring. If they're just a piece of shit of a person, it would kind of be hard sometimes. Like, or if they didn't have power, it would be hard sometimes to be able to, abuse people in the way that they do and at the level that they do, because what's reeling them in, right? They're probably like charismatic or really smart, or they have power, or they have money or something, to where they're able to reel people in, make them fall in love, or reel them in and have some type of power over them, to where, or they're able to offer them something. And then once they get them, now, they abuse them. And I know some people, when analyzing or just when watching shows or movies, they don't like to admit that the abuser or somebody who inflicted abuse on somebody, or whatever the case is, that they can have a redeeming quality. But I'm like, but that's more realistic for them to have redeeming qualities. Let's be real. Lestat was very smart, or he is very smart. He is very handsome, right? He has money and resources. And in Louis' case, he was able to see Louis in a way that, he wasn't really being able to be seen at the time. Just not even fully accepting himself. This is somebody who was able to see him more than just a black man who's a good boy, He's pushing Louis to rise up against these other white men who are, pushing him down and playing in his space, honestly. And again, heavy on the resources. Like the fact that Lestat is a white man, okay, during this time period, and that Louis is a black man or Creole man at the time, to where, yeah, because he's Creole, like, yeah, Louis gets some privileges, but he ain't white. Okay, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much privilege they give him within the system, he is still looked at as just a black man, an N word, if we gonna be real. And so Lestat coming in, not only being able to see him, not only you could tell that he's attracted to him, right? But also being able to give him a leg up in the business. Oh yeah, that's a wrap. But again, he was preying on Louis, so that was all a part of his way to reel Louis in, like get him on the hook. And so, with that being said, all those things and that side of that person that was shown during that hunting process, during that reeling in process, that's sometimes what that person, like Louis, that victim in the situation, that's what they remember. And so, when the bad times are bad, they'll be like, okay, yeah, it's bad. It's we in the trenches. But when the good times are good, that's what they're always trying to get back. They're like, I know it's that person is there. That's the person I fell in love with. That's the person who I was with in the beginning. I feel like you're still in there. I just have to wait for it, or things just got to get better, or they think the outside circumstances are going to change and bring that other person back, when really sometimes I'll just say, I could, again, when I say these things, this is not speaking for every situation like this, but there are some situations like this, if not a lot, where sometimes it's just a mask that they put on to get you in the first place. And so you're always waiting for that person to come back, and they just don't. In Louis and Lestat's case, it's there, right? Because I do genuinely believe Lestat cares about Louis. I personally don't think he sees him as an equal, like how he be trying to say, but I feel like he sees him as a worthy candidate to be his lover, to be his partner. Because we see time and time again of Lestat not treating Louis as an equal. Because again, he's the abuser in the situation. You don't consider the person that you're abusing as equal to you. You don't respect them as an equal, and that shows in his actions. But even when it came to withholding information about, like, he didn't tell nobody that he could float. Why the hell we didn't know your ass could fly? But again, you have to always be a step ahead, if not a few steps ahead, of the people that you're abusing. Because why would you want them to know all the tricks that you got up your sleeve so that they can protect themselves from your abuse? And also, Lestat's like a narcissist. So, like, they think they smarter than everybody. They always got to be the center of attention. So, no, he doesn't see him as an equal, but I won't say that they don't actually care about each other. I feel like they definitely care about each other, but again, when it comes to that respect on Lestat's end, it's not all the way there, honey. But yeah, watching their dynamic and watching that family dynamic, especially when we bring in Claudia. Let's talk about Claudia for a second. So I loved Claudia's character, and I love both the actresses that played her, the one in season 1 and season 2. I really think that having the cast switch up happen, it actually worked in the show's favor. Usually it's backwards, right? Usually you're like, why they change the character like this? Like, it's not making sense. But it actually helps, like, the story, especially since they say that Louis doesn't really remember certain things, and he doesn't really remember, oh, if she looks like this or whatever the case is. So it actually makes perfect sense, and they both played the hell out of their roles. But I think this is the only time where somebody got switched out as a character and I wasn't mad about it. And honestly, the fact that they made that second Claudia darker skin, I like that. I'm not gonna lie, I liked that. Because some could argue that the lighter skinned Claudia was more like Lestat's Claudia. Louis kept pointing out how similar they were. And they were. It's like she thought just like Lestat, right? And honestly, when we really look at it, when it comes to raising her, right, as a vampire, Lestat did a lot of that. He did. And Louis was a lot of like the supporting role. He was like that nice parent. Meanwhile, Lestat was really doing the teaching when it came to, okay, this is how you hunt. This is how you do this. This is how you do that. And I just feel like, honestly, I do feel like if Louis would have showed more of his toxic side, because the thing is, Claudia saw that later on. When it came to kill Lestat, and he showed his ass, and she was like, look, we gotta throw his ass in the incinerator. He was like, no, and he put his hands on her. Oh, that's when we see the different Claudia come out in the next season. But that's also, I feel like that was a huge pivotal moment, because it was just like, oh, so you're a part of the problem too. And mind you, Claudia was able to see that he was a part of the problem, in the sense of, okay, you keep taking him back, you keep choosing him over me, you keep putting us, all of us, in danger at this point, because I'm like connected to you. Okay, now I can't live my life. He will not let me go live my life. But I think for her to put that whole plan together, for them to go through that whole entire plan, and then for Louis to not follow through on the most important damn part of the plan. Okay, but then for him to be totally okay with throwing Antoinette's ass in that incinerator. But when it came to getting the job done with Lestat, he's talking about, oh no, let's just throw him on the side of the on the side of the house, so they could take him to the garbage. To the garbage, where he could feed on shit, where he could come and get my ass. Because mind you, she already knew he's gonna come for me. He's not coming for you. He's gonna come for me. I didn't do all this shit for nothing. The hell? Because even think about that moment, like when everything went through, Lestat swallowed the poison, this, that, and the third. Look, cool. The plan worked. Even Louis slashing his throat. What? He just drank the poisonous blood. You're gonna slash his throat so that the blood drains immediately? Please don't piss me off, Louis. Like, even in Louis trying to hurt Lestat in that way, right? Dealing, the final blow, quote unquote. It's still a way to try to save him in some way, shape, or form. And so him not putting him into this incinerator after all of that was crazy. And then him choking her out when she was going to do it anyway. Like, oh yeah, you showing your ass. So yeah, you are a part of the problem now. And you're always going to pick him over me, even if it's between life and death. And it's showing you really don't give a damn about me, because you know that if he gets back to, like, his healthy self, he's coming for me. He's not coming for you. He's coming for me. I didn't do this shit for nothing. Again, like, don't piss me off. But then in season 2, we get, I think her name is Delaney, and she did a wonderful job as Claudia. And I just love the fact that they made her darker skin. Like, it just makes sense, right? And it just feels like we're getting, like, Louis' Claudia, if that makes sense. In a sense where she kind of acts a little bit more like him in this season, rather than how in the first season Claudia acted really, really similar to Lestat. And what I mean by that is, like, in her relationship with Louis in season 2, it's as if it kind of reminds you of the relationship that Louis has with Lestat a little bit, in season 1, where you love this person, you have love for this person, but you can't trust them, right? You can't trust them, and they can hurt you, right? In more ways than one, not just physical, but even emotional and things like that. And so now we see in season 2 with this Claudia, she's looking at Louis different, because now she's not only looking at Lestat as, oh, the big bad wolf, he's the only one to blame, he's the only problem, I have to save Louis from Lestat. Now she's like, you know what, I gotta get the fuck up out of here, because y'all both ain't shit, honestly. Louis, I love you, I got love for you, but fuck you. Like, honestly. And I always said that if Louis would have showed his ass sooner, like in season 1, I feel like she wouldn't have been necessarily closer to Lestat. I just feel like she wouldn't have been putting Louis on such a pedestal. Like, she would have realized, oh, he's not so innocent. Oh, I actually need to look out just for me, instead of me looking out, like, thinking that all I have to do is put this plan together and I'm gonna get us free. Understanding that, Louis, you can't free somebody who's really not ready to be free, honey. And I kind of really love the fact that they put that in there, because in a lot of domestic violence situations, not everyone, but a lot of them, when people are not ready to leave, it doesn't matter how much help that is offered to them, they won't take it. They may just sabotage it, just like how Louis did. Again, this is not every situation, but in some cases, yes, if they are not ready, they need to be ready themselves. And some may never be ready. It doesn't matter how much abuse is happening to them. And that's the hard truth, because I feel like with Claudia, it was like she was watching her parents fight. And she kept choosing kind of like the mom side. I'll say the mom just because Louis kind of took on that role of like the nurturing, where Lestat was taking on like that teaching role, the masculine, like discipline, rigid and structured role. whereas Louis fell into the role of like being more gentle and more kind and like, always trying to not coddle her but comfort Claudia. Similar to like a mother, right? I understand not all mothers are like that. I'm just saying. In a lot of cases they are. And so it kind of felt like, a child watching their mother get abused by the father. But with that rude awakening at the end of season 1, it was as if the child was like being failed by the mother too. I don't know why this. If you watch My Hero Academia, it reminds me of Endeavor and Shoto's mom. I forget her name. Of course, not exactly like this, but in the way that she failed Shoto. Like by pouring, but yes, I understand she was being abused too, and I understand hurt people. But it reminds me of how when I say both of them, they both failed Shoto, because even though this man is beating on you and hurting you, and you're having mental breakdowns, this, that, and the third. Even if you have a mental breakdown and you pour hot or splash hot water on that child's face to where now they have a forever scar on their face, and I can't even imagine just the pain and the betrayal that you're feeling that your parent is doing this to you. In that moment, it doesn't matter, even if she's getting abused and she had a mental breakdown, in that moment as a parent, she failed him, right? And I understand the child wanting to just kind of blame one parent so that they can have, at least a connection with one of them, especially if one of them wasn't always consistently abusive. But still, in that moment, she failed him too. They both failed him. So it's that rude awakening even for this show where Claudia's like, okay, well, I knew that Lestat was the big bad wolf, but you Louis, the one that I've been, nurturing back to health, the one that I've been here for this whole time, for these few years, getting you back good after this dude chewed you up and spit you out. What? Like, no way. You gonna put your hands on me over him? That's insane. Like, he failed her in that moment. And so, and we see the remnants of that all throughout the second season, and her longing to be, included and have community with other people, other vampires, other than Lestat and Louis, because she's like, y'all both suck. Like, literally, she was like, I met 3 vampires in my life. Bruce, Lestat, and Louis. And she was like, you guys are all trash. Like, I hate you all. And it just sucks because it just seems like the damn vampire community is so damn small to where it's like, for me personally, as soon as they saw that damn picture on the wall of Lestat, they should have left as soon. But again, even though Louis was like, look, we need to get the hell up out of here, they're gonna figure out that we killed him, quote unquote kill, because Louis, you ain't killed nobody. But anyway, I understood Claudia's yearning and her the longing to have a community, especially this is the first time she saw other vampire women too, like that was another thing. So I just hate the fact that they both failed her, especially Louis, okay, especially the one that was begging to get her changed and get her turned for him, to fail her in this way to where she doesn't care about the consequences, or she's really has that hopeful thinking of like, they're not gonna find out, it's okay, they're not gonna find out. It's like, girl, you got to remember who Louis is. This is not just you. I feel like if Claudia was by herself, she probably would have been able to keep that secret, right? Probably. But at the same time, I don't know, but I kind of do feel like she would have been able to keep that wall up to where Armand probably wouldn't have been able to get it as easily as he got it from Louis, because you got to remember, Claudia, who you traveling with. Not only is Louis hallucinating Lestat, okay? But also, Louis needs somebody face down in that coffin, honey. Louis needs somebody face down in that motherfucking coffin, or he want to be face down in that coffin, honey. So, they gonna be pillow talking in that damn coffin. Like, you didn't stand a chance. Actually, as soon as if you see somebody that Louis is gonna find attractive, just wrap it up, pack it up. Because he finna be singing like a motherfucking bird. Those walls are coming down, okay? So tying all this back into that Stockholm Syndrome, it's like Claudia was able to see this too. Like, she's able to see how, a hostage, it develops, this bond with that their captor. And I say that because that's like, the definition with Stockholm Syndrome. But Louis keeps on trying to justify the reason why he keeps on making either excuses for Lestat, or he keeps on romanticizing things. And he does not, it's as if he's kind of ashamed of the fact that even after all this shit that Lestat put him through and did to him, he still loved that man. And he keeps trying to say, oh, it's the vampiric bond, it's the creator's bond, it's something so powerful. I'm like, no, that's not what it is, Louis, because Lestat also created Claudia and she want that man dead. So what's the excuse? But this is why I love the writing, because it's so complex. This is why I say multiple things can be true at once. Some people on the outside, they're just not gonna get it. It doesn't, it, because to them it doesn't make sense. They do not see everything that the hostage or the survivors or the victim has experienced or that they have seen, right? And this is why, although I'm glad that Daniel is there to clock that shit up, like, okay, let's not romanticize this abuse too much, child. But I can also respect the fact that Louis like, well, just calm down. Let yourself be seduced by the story like how I was, so that at least you can get a little bit more insight on all the things that I was feeling, instead of like how I came at you before in the first interview of like, oh, I hate that man's guts so much, oh, he's a piece of shit. It's like, no, actually I was feeling all of these things, and this is why we here today, because I'm still feeling all these different things. It's very complicated how I feel about this man. I don't just feel hate and animosity. I feel all these other things too, and this is why it's complicated. And let's be real. I know this has served as a little source of therapy for Louis, because who's the vampire therapist? These people need therapy. It's always some type of abusive situation that they in. Like, but they never have any therapy. Like, come on. And they just live forever. So they just stuck with this shit. Like, think about too, like, when Louis was changed, like, he was going through a lot. He was going through a lot. Like, the fact that he is even hallucinating Lestat in the way that he is, and Daniel was like, "Are you schizophrenic, Louis?" Meanwhile, literally at the same time, hallucinating Lestat, talking about no, because some can argue that just he had like his brain something split during that time of losing his brother and hearing Lestat's voice and being hunted by him and all type of stuff. And some people can argue that, oh no, he always had that, because I think that's what his brother had. It could just run in the family, and that's why he still has it, even being a vampire. I don't know. But what I will say is that, again, the people around you, in this type, if you're in like this type of situation, especially like the children, they can sometimes see, if not almost always can see, the fact that it's like, oh, like you have this bond to this person that you should not be having this bond to. But then we can see from Louis' point of view of like, this is why I have that bond though. It's very complicated. It's not just like he was just a complete asshole every single second of every single day that we spent together. It wasn't like that. When the good times were, when we had good times, they were good, and when we had bad times, they were bad. And also we get to see even later on, when we see in season 2, we see some of the stuff that Louis was doing too. And in season 2, we also see that Louis was low-key liking that toxicity. And so, yeah, like, it's, again, like I said, it doesn't justify him getting abused, no, but it's just saying, it's showing too, like, Louis not 100% innocent. It's not like he was always just pushing away that, like, sometimes he was adding fuel to the fire because he low-key likes that shit. Like, if we're gonna be, and not saying he low-key likes being abused, but he likes that toxic shit. He does. And we also get to see, like, when Claudia was being real diligent, when we were like, we not fucking with him. Like, we not. You can take your cars, take your damn coffin, take all these motherfucking gifts, get the skedaddle, right? And then here come Louis. Like, first of all, when he brought those damn cars, he was low-key like looking at those cars, and she had to scratch the damn car up and was like, let's go, bring your ass, okay? But then when Lestat made that record for him, and he got Antoinette on the damn thing singing it, first of all, the gall. The audacity was crazy. But what do you expect? It's Lestat. But the fact that Louis gonna swim across, what was that, the Mississippi River? Because he said it was faster. He did all that just to whoop his ass. Yeah, Lestat was like, get out. And she was like, wait, hold on, this is my shit. He was like, get out. So she over here listening to them, okay? Like, you listening to them in your motherfucking bed? You better than me, child. But yeah, it was as if Louis was ashamed to say, yeah, I mean, Even after everything, I love him. That's what kept me there. Not no damn vampiric bond, not no creator's bond. Because like I said, Claudia was ready to kill that man. Straight up. And it's like he was ashamed to say the reason why I saved him was because I loved him. Point blank, period. And on one hand, I could definitely see how that can feel shameful, right? Like, especially, for example, think about Louis talking to Claudia and they're, talking about all the bad stuff that, Lestat has done and this, that, and the third. But at the end of the day, imagine if Louis like, well, but at the end of the day, I'm going to always accept him. You'll be like, what the fuck? I thought we was on the same page. And it's especially kind of like, I could see how it could feel shameful on his end, especially if you're always telling your child, or even if a sister dynamic, a sibling dynamic, that, I choose you, right? Remember that scene in season 2 where he's like, it's you and me and you. Da-da-da. And remember, too, he's telling Claudia, if you were the last vampire on this earth, or did he say the last person? Whatever the case is, on this earth, I'll be completely fine with that. He's saying it's you, me, you, me, you, la la la. Literally while hallucinating Lestat right next to her. Who the hell are you talking to for real? You say you talking to Claudia, but like she said, she clocked your shit later on when you chose Armand and was telling him all the damn tea and didn't even tell her. She had to find out through Armand. She like, what happened to me? You, me, motherfucker. What the hell happened to that? That shit just went out the window. As soon as you found something new to play with, right out the window, huh? Damn. But again, that it does seem shameful to be telling somebody that, right? Whether it's a sibling, a child, whatever the case is, family member, friend, whatever, someone who was there for you in your times of need when this person abused you, threw you away like trash, okay? To be like, but yeah, I'ma still choose him though. Like, I love you, I do. You, me, you, me, you, me, you. I love you. But if he wants his family back, best believe I'm being that coffin face down. That does sound shameful, doesn't it? But on a real note, it's complicated, right? It's very, very complicated. And I can understand, like, with that Stockholm Syndrome, people on the outside, they aren't going to be able to understand unless they probably been through it themselves, or at least tried to even educate themselves on these type of terms, because it's like, it doesn't make sense on the outside, especially when you don't have that bond. And that's why even with Claudia, it don't make sense. Even though she has that creator's bond with Lestat, she does not have that bond, like the romantic bond with Lestat. And that's why it just doesn't make sense to her. She's just like, yeah, no, you're tripping. You're absolutely wild. And like I said, I'm like, Louis, you can't use that as an excuse, because you and Claudia both have the same creator. So it's not no creator's bond that's so strong that it doesn't matter what he does, you don't want to, rebel against him. It's because you love that man. That's why. That man is your first love. That's why. That's why. And although he's abusive, you love him. And it's also that Stockholm Syndrome, to where you have developed this bond, even though this person, not only do you love him, like I said, multiple things can be true at once. Not only do you love him, not only is he your creator, your maker, all these different things, you also have Stockholm Syndrome, honey. And you have developed this bond to where it doesn't matter what he do, you gonna be running back, or you gonna let him back in. And it sucks because they do look good together. I swear, sometimes I see TikTok edits and they just look so, like, of course they take all the good scenes where they're happy and they're smiling, and and I'm just like, damn. In another world, I wish y'all could just be together and it could be not toxic as hell and abusive, and the racial dynamics and the power dynamics. I just wish you guys could just be actually happy and see each other as equals, and but that's just not what we finna get. But yeah, y'all let me know what other themes that y'all want to talk about from season 1 or even season 2 of Interview with a Vampire. Like I said, I wanted to just talk about Stockholm Syndrome in this video, but y'all already know how we get down over here. We gonna go on all these tangents and we gonna wrap it back up with a nice little bow at the end. But we will definitely be doing more episodes on this show because I love this show down. And y'all, I'm ready for season 3. I don't even know what date it's gonna come out. They being real stingy with that motherfucking date. But when it comes out, best believe I'm finna be set and we are gonna talk about it. But I want to thank y'all for listening to the Between the Lines podcast. Again, I'm your host, Shania Trotter, and I will see y'all next week. Bye.